Hi, I am Isis with Sistah Scifi here. I'm working hard to make Wednesday your new favorite day of the week. Hopefully everybody's having a great week so far. I feel great. I've been sleeping really well. Okay. Hey, Stacia. So if you are on our email list, if you've been following our social media, you know that we have been working with Seattle Public Library and Clarion West for a month-long celebration of our favorite author, your favorite author, Octavia Butler, and her landmark work, Parable of the Sawyer. So if you don't know, Parable of the Sawyer is the book chosen for Seattle Reads 2024 this year. Parable of Sawyer starts this year, and last Saturday was Octavia E. Butler's birthday. So all the Sistah Scifi Wind Down Wednesdays today for the next 4 weeks will be dedicated to discussing Parable of the Sawyer. So initially we were going to have Angela Dalton today, but Angela Dalton had a family emergency. So Rashida Smith, I'm very grateful, decided to hop in, and we'll be discussing Parable of the Sawyer with me today. If you have questions during the conversation about the book that you've wanted to discuss in community for forever, now is the time. Oh, hey, Aniela. So Rashida will be joining as well. She just sent me an email a couple minutes ago saying I will be joining soon. So Rashida, if you're there, you can send me a request. I'm not quite sure what your handle is. I'm looking for it now. Nope, that's not it either. Oh, there we go. That makes sense. Okay, awesome. Yay for Rashida. I'm very grateful. Okay. So yes, I accepted your request. Oh, I'll accept it again. Yay. What's happening? Let me try sending you. Okay, so I also tried sending you. Yes, I see it. I've invited Clarion West, so hopefully, yay, beautiful.
Yay!
It's magic. How are you?
I think it was on a little delay. I could see it rolling and it just
Yeah,
didn't quite.
I mean, sometimes it's a delay, and sometimes like it won't let me accept people. So
Yeah, definitely. I think I sent the thing and then I couldn't unsend it to resend it, and I realized it was like, okay, technology, you win. Just help.
it does all the things. You look terrific. You look well lit. Like
Oh,
whatever the light source is, it's popping thumbs
well,
up.
thank you. We've got our long Pacific Northwest days, so I've got plenty of sunlight left and a good window. So thank you.
That's like because I also see a window behind you. I was like, this you should be. I don't. You're like, why is she so deep in my lighting? I don't know.
I know, I love it. I love it. I'll take it. I'm very happy in the space. I get good daylight and I'm underground, so it's like a nice compromise. I'm in the basement, it's cool, but also the daylight is nice.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. So, how are you? How's your week been? How's your year been? How's your June been?
Oh man, so I took on the role of program director this year at Clarion West, so that's been a great change, and there's a lot of really great stuff happening. But our 6 week workshop just kicked off last week, so we're in our second week. We're live in Seattle this year in person, which has been wonderful. And so kind of getting the students running and getting them watching them begin to gel and work together. And meet two instructors. I've got two phenomenal instructors. And then on my side of things, just working on our write-a-thon, which is our longest running fundraiser, supports the 6 week workshop and all of our online programming. So I've been a very busy girl the last couple of weeks, but overall, really well, really well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I a lot of things, as you know, Children of the Blood and Bone published yesterday. So that was the best. Sister Sci-Fi's biggest pre-order today. If you ordered the book for me, it's coming. It's either in the mail or will be in the mail soon. So that's been a lot of fun. Excited about this. Yes, so Stacia just dropped Claire and West upcoming events. So this has been really cool. And yeah, just talking about books. I just finished reading. In addition to talking about Parable of the Sawyer, I just finished reading One of Our Kind. I need more people to read it so I can talk about it. So, but
yes, well,
yeah, that's so. Let's please. I'm trying to think about the best. Introduce yourself because that'll segue great into Clarion West, and then tie into Octavia Butler, and then tie into Parable of the Sawyer. So
for
let's do that.
sure, for sure. So I think I mentioned already, I'm the program director at Clarion West, and I just realized this, I think earlier this week, that my association with Clarion West was going to be 20 years in 2005. So I attended the workshop in 2005 as a 6-week student. Clarion West was our week 1 instructor. So, or excuse me, Octavia Butler was our week 1 instructor. So that's
Oh, so
my personal connection.
were you in the same Clarion West as Nisi Shaw and Andrea Hurston? No.
No. Unfortunately, that would have been a dream team.
Yeah.
No, I was in.
Octavia Butler taught more than 1 year.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She taught many years, so that's kind of the personal connection. Then leads to the organizational connection. Octavia attended the original Clarion in Michigan. Oh gosh, and I want to say, what year? I'm gonna mess the year up, but early in her career. And then that Clarion kind of shut down, and Clarion West started up in its current iteration in Seattle. And so it's been running, gosh, we've been running for a long time now. And then she taught many, many times at Clarion West, which was amazing. So she moved to the Seattle area, lived in Seattle, well, famously did not drive. So it was often, Seattle's not a very walkable city. So she lived in a great neighborhood for walking, but often rode and drove with folks that are administrators of the workshop. So Neil Graham and Les Howell from back in the day. So lots of good friends and very good memories of Octavia in our writing community here.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, like, the city of Pasadena has like claimed Octavia so hard, and I'm going to be like, but Octavia chose to live in Seattle as an adult when Octavia could have lived absolutely anywhere.
Yeah.
So we have as big a claim, if not a bigger claim, than Pasadena, California.
Yeah. I mean, earlier this year, the street that she lived on in Lake Forest Park, just north of the city of Seattle, was renamed in her honor. And she picked that neighborhood because she could walk to Third Place Bookstore down the hill and the store. And, all of her neighbors came out and spoke just so highly of her and had such lovely things to say about her, both as just a neighbor and a person and also a writer. And so she really had strong community here. And we have a big heart attachment to her and her work. It just touches us very deeply. Yeah.
I love it. Next, Pasadena has an official Octavia Butler Day, so that's next this year.
Yeah, well, hey, we're doing a whole year. Especially the library knows we've got a whole year of Seattle Reads. We've got tons of organizations, our local nonprofits, our local Black-owned and Black-run organizations are doing some amazing panels and events and community happenings. We just had a great panel with Amber Flame of Hedgebrook, Anastasia Renee, and Nisi Shaw at Elliott Bay Book Company. So we've got all year, we are celebrating Octavia in Seattle.
Yay! If you're looking for the series of events, if you're on the Sistah Sci-Fi email list, the link was included in the email. It's right at the top, or you can Google it, or Stacia is in the chat, so I'm sure will drop the link in there shortly, so you can
see them flying by. Those links are rolling.
I love it. This is amazing because usually I'm trying to talk and do both, so it's nice to do one thing. So there's a series of events happening in Seattle, both in person and virtual, including these lives all year long.
Yeah. This is the first year that Seattle Reads has had an author or selected a book where the author is no longer with us in person. So part of it. And I feel like it's just a wonderful opportunity to involve so many great organizations here in the area. And Sistah Sci-Fi, who's all over the place because you're everywhere. Let's just be honest.
Well,
So yeah, we're
yeah.
just like prolonging the magic of Parable for sure.
Yes, and I think that's so powerful. Um, so yeah, let's talk about Parable of Sawyer, um, which is a Seattle Read book for this year. How did you discover either the book or Octavia Butler? Like, I'm not quite sure like which one came first.
So I think I discovered Octavia first. And actually, I can't take credit. My dad, when I was in high school and really took off into reading speculative fiction, and I was bringing home Asimov and Ray Bradbury from the library, and he was like, "Here is Octavia Butler," um, and that was incredible. I think sometimes I was like, wow, did you know you were giving 16-year-old me? But it really did set me on a track for reading and loving her work. And Xenogenesis was my first, so Lilith's Brood. Those were my first of hers. And then I came on Parable actually in college. I had a feminist science fiction class,
Ooh.
which was outstanding. We read Marge Piercy and Joanna Russ and Octavia and Ursula Le Guin. And anyway, so one of the assignments was pieces of Parable. And I remember reading it and thinking, like, how did I miss this one? Like, I was so into Xenogenesis was like the best thing I'd ever written. I got into Clarion West. And basically, my submission story was Octavia Butler fanfic from Xenogenesis. Like, it was total, I love your writing and I want to
Ooh.
write just like you. And so, but anyway, so it was a much later that I came on Parable. And man, it just really, I do remember I grew up in California, so I felt very prescient for issues that were going on in California at the time. I mean, the drought was always an issue, and I was in northern Central Valley, so I mean, not to the extent of LA for sure. I mean, you might know better, but I just remember those issues and thinking like, wow, this is future, but it's happening right now. And I remember the setup going and getting goosebumps in the opening chapters, and then was just riveted and tore through Parable, the Sower, and Talents, like I think in 48 hours. I mean, kind of gripping the book
Oh
and
my
white
goodness.
knuckling. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's the kind of book that sneaks up on you. Um, but it's deeply impactful, and it made
Mhm.
and moving north seemed like a very good idea. So here I am in the
Really?
Pacific
Absolutely.
Northwest.
The Parable of Sawyer migration. I love it. I have tons more questions about Parable of Sawyer. I just want to say hi to some authors in the chat. So I see Leslie Penelope. I see M. Shy. Um, so there are probably others. So if I missed you, just say something in the chat. Also, in general, if you have a question that you want to discuss about Parable of Sawyer, now that we're all community together, now it's the year 2024, the year that it all began in the duology, please drop them in the chat. So when we start, this is my personal copy. Um, um, oh my God. It starts Saturday, July 20th, 2024. I thought I missed the start date. But no. Um, and it starts with Lauren's dream, her like recurring dream.
Yeah.
And and Lauren is 16 at the start of Parable. How did the character's voice resonate with you? Like, yes, it's but it's like we have the 16-year-old having this really heavy dream who's like just she's 16, but the book is not YA. How did that land with you the first time you read Parable of the Sword?
I think it made an incredible impression on me because I think, YA as we think of it now feels very new to me. I mean, when I was, you know, 15, 16 in the YA range, there wasn't YA. There was like some middle grade stuff. I was going from Susan Cooper to like Stephen King. And so I think it's great that YA is here. I love it as a genre. I mean, even as an adult, I now read quite a bit of it. But I feel like as a young reader, I went straight into more adult fiction because I was a voracious reader. And so That voice to me felt very resonant. And as a young person at the time, I was in my early 20s, it still felt like it could, I felt very close to her, and I really identified with that voice and the kind of sense that things were not right, and that no one was really would believe you because you're a child still, in that way. And so it was really inspiring then to see this young woman at 16 then become a leader, and craft this religion out of her experience to guide these survivors was a really powerful expression of a young person's power.
Agreed. Um, what we also get, like, is Ursi, the Book of the Living, right? Which is the text, the Bible, the religious tenets that Lauren, the religion that Lauren Olamina. What was some of your favorite quotes or passages from the Book of the Living? Are you like, oh,
I feel like, I think the often quoted is everything is change is such a like profoundly in the way that the best profound statements are. It's very simple, and but yet you can go around and around in your mind with it. And I'm a huge fan of meditation. And so I actually have, that is one of the mantras that I will let circle sometimes to help myself focus, because it is such a deceptively simple and very clear and very true thing. And I think she identified that really well. And one of the things I think, just Octavia's work in general is her ability to synthesize and to take a lot of very big and complex ideas and make them very resonant and emotionally deep, but very easy to catch or grasp on. It's not a lot of like, you're not rolling through sentences trying to figure out what she's trying to say. And I think that's so effective for writing. Yeah, as a writer.
agree.
How to change. Yeah.
I think a lot of Butler's text it's incredibly crisp. It's very
Hmm.
clean. The wording is almost surgical in its directness. I had an English teacher in high school say, like, there's something powerful in expressing yourself in words of one heartbeat, right?
Hmm.
And so when you read that God is strange, all that you touch, you change.
Hmm.
All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. And I remember reading that and I was like,
Yeah.
dang, where's the lie? Like, you're like,
Yeah.
it's so like, it feels so universal, but you want to be like, no, there has to, and you're
Yeah.
like, no, yeah, this is it.
It's
Like,
that
that's the one
feeling
thing
that,
that
like,
you
certainly this has
see.
been
That's the
said
one thing.
before, but like, wow, it's been put together in this way. I know I've seen it makes it feel very familiar. I think that's one of the things she captures so well, is how familiar that sounds, even though maybe the first time you're reading it, you're like, oh yes, of course I know this.
Yes.
Which makes it a really effective belief structure to build on, right? I mean, did you have other ones too? That I love that whole passage that you read.
Oh, so, I mean, well,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
so my mom has my copy now, which is the funny thing, is
I'm,
I was
I'm,
like, I didn't have
I'm,
a chance to go pick it back up.
yeah.
So I'm floating blind, and I've been listening to the audiobook though, which I would say, if you are in the mood for a reread and you haven't heard the audiobook, I can't remember the narrator's name offhand, but it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a little harrowing. It gets my heart going a lot sometimes, but it's a really good.
Yeah.
The reader does really well.
Process of yes. I love audiobooks and I'm excited to because I haven't listened to the audiobook of Parable of the Sower, so that feels like a great recommendation. I also want to bring in some of the comments. Um, so Shy says, when I tell people that this is the year that Parable starts, it freaks people out. Um,
Mhm.
And then Shai also says, I like that as a young protagonist, finding her voice as a writer, it made um, the take that much more
Mhm.
personal because writers know what that feels like. So talking about Ursi, God of the Living. Um,
Yeah, and you also have a protagonist who's not a kind of all powerful protagonist, or like sometimes you see in YA now, and this is not to knock it at all, but you do see these young people who kind of stumble into extraordinary circumstances and then overcome through some internal power. And I think Lauren's so intriguing because she's so vulnerable. She's so open and so easily feels harm around her. And I think that that makes it more visceral and more immediate because you're afraid not just for her in general, but specifically knowing that she's got this vulnerability, which is also a strength then as well.
Right. So that is a great transition to Lauren's hyperempathy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which, yeah. So, which is a side effect of, I mean, if you haven't read the book, I don't think it's a major spoiler, but it's a side effect of like some of Lauren's mother's behavior while Lauren's mother was pregnant with her. And I just thought that was so, the adjective I'm going to use is wild, and I feel like I should find something, but it was just like, oh, wow, like, yeah, what did you think of Lauren's
I
hyperempathy?
think it's an interesting thing that Butler kind of grappled with in a lot of her work is because I think it comes up a little bit too in Wild Seed and some of the Pattern Master stuff too, where she's got folks who are, and especially that it comes out of things that we associate with like, you know, terrible behavior of the parents or, you know, irresponsibility of the parents and their like, there's this interesting thought that like maybe things we don't know and fully understand what all comes out of any particular set of choices we make. You know, it's this good luck, bad luck, who's to say kind of business. And so I think that's a really, I love that there are no easy answers for Octavia. Maybe she had all the answers and she took them with her. But at least she leaves us with the questions to think about for ourselves and to kind of and it assumes that we're intelligent enough to have that dialogue with the idea and this concept that this hyper empathy is incredible and a valuable skill, but also a very vulnerable position to be in. And to put it in, you know, the body of a young Black woman, I think is also incredibly prescient and kind of and good conversation because it then asks us, not only is she human, she's ultra human, she's uber vulnerable in a way that I think culturally we don't give young, especially young Black girls, a lot of credit for being having that kind of vulnerability and humanity even.
Mm.
So that's really powerful to me. I think that's a really great space she's asking us and inviting us to step into in this character.
I I so agree with that, especially like the humanization,
Mm-hmm.
like the humanization and also the actualization. Like Lauren is very actualized for any age, but particularly, and I think I said earlier, 16. She was 15 when the book begins. Leslie Penelope says, yes, Octavia Butler was great with vulnerable characters, and I agree.
Hey, Leslie. Sorry.
No, no, yes, that's definitely
Leslie was here very recently as and taught an amazing world building class with Clearing West at Hugo House, and it was stellar. So I'm very excited to see her in that chat. Yeah.
And I mean, like, we're talking about Octavia Butler, we're talking about Carol Lucerne, but I want to call out all the books all the time. So Leslie just came out with an amazing book, Daughter of the Merciful Deep. Okay, so that's that
Yeah,
PSA.
I'm
So
waiting
I'm
for my copy. I was a little late on the pre-order, but my copy is coming eventually. So I'm doing the like pause, the excited pause until it gets here.
yeah, I love it. So on page 55 of my edition of the book, so this is Lauren in conversation with her friend um, about like their dire situation in their neighborhood. Um, and so Lauren is basically saying, yo, we got to get ready,
Mm-hmm.
right? For when stuff pops off. And her friend is like, we can't do anything about it. Lauren responds back, we have to. Have to what? We're 15. What can we do? And Lauren responds back, we can get ready. That's what we got to do now. Get ready for what is going to happen. Get ready to survive it. Get ready to make a life afterward.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the key lessons that you took away from Parable of Sower, and how does it impact your life now?
Oh man, you're asking like the easy questions. I see, Isis.
I,
What's going
I
on
try.
here?
I
Yeah,
try.
I mean, I think this sense of personal power and responsibility for your life and your outcomes, no matter how powerful, how powerless you may sometimes feel in the face of the big machine of everything, the politics, corporations, culture, that kind of thing. It has been finding your power where you can and building it when you can. And also community. Like, I think the
Yes.
older I get, the more I see that importance of and kind of recognize that importance of having your community, not even on a giant scale, but just on a very intimate scale of your people around you that you count on, who calls who. And I think there's some statistic about the number of people who said they had a close friend has dropped significantly. And like that for me feels more terrifying than some of the big external out stuff, because we learn a lot from our close personal relationships. It's empathy, it's compassion and concern, and how to be present for each other. And I think so. I love that passage where she's bringing her friend along, and like this is something that we have to do this, and it's not going to come to us from somebody else. It's we have to build, and I think that's beginning reflected in look at Sistah Sci-Fi, Clarion West, and Seattle Reads, and and these organizations, Art Noir here in Seattle, the local Loving Room bookstore. It's like there's a sense of, for a long time, we were all operating in our very own little spheres and doing our work in our little spaces. And really I think we are, as an organization, really beginning to appreciate and see how valuable these connections in this community is. Both, just both interpersonally, it's like supporting, but also helping to uplift each other. And then just the comfort of having each other in this space together is great. So that's, I think, my big one. I don't know. What did you feel like you took away from that? I'm so curious now.
I think I think very like naturally change terrifies me, right?
Mm,
Like I'm like, I want to know what to expect. I want to know what to expect at all times. So particularly the first time reading the book, it really changed.
mm,
It really reconfigured my relationship to change. Like if
mm,
I could look at
mm,
change as a powerful force,
mm,
like fire, like water, like, you know, like a deity, right? And not something to just be blindly
mm,
feared. Um, and know that it's there. Um,
mm,
yeah, that was really like, and be ready for it and move with it. Um, that felt really nourishing. And then also whenever, like you, whenever I'm like, I can't, right? Whenever I'm in that mindset, I was like, well, Lauren did it. And Lauren was like
mm,
15 and like had like before the internet, like before social media, and like made the
mm.
trek from like Pasadena to like, I think that, yeah, in the book they end up in like Northern California,
I think
something
it's like
like that.
Mendocino County somewhere. Yeah, I went to school
Mhm.
up there at Humboldt State, and so I always felt like it was like, oh, this is, yeah, I could see all these places that, that they would have been through. Yeah.
But you like get in a car, get on a bus, or
No,
take the train. They
I
walked.
know. And I've driven that road up. I can't imagine walking it. That's
Right. And then was intentional about like who do I connect with on
hmm
this journey? How do I watch people to make sure that we're aligned and that we can be safe together? Like even the connection with Wacola, who would end up being like her husband and her, like, was
hmm
very intentional about. So those are the things that I took away from the book. Yeah, it was very powerful for me.
I
So yeah.
love that part about change. I think it's so empowering. It's a wave, right? It's coming. So you can either learn to move in it and with it, or, keep fighting and see how that happens. I mean, change is hard. It's one of those, I mean, we'd like to think that we're flexible and we can handle whatever comes up. Maybe some people do. That's not me, but I think that yeah, the ability to sort of move and change, and then even perhaps maybe start your own change a little bit too.
Mhm.
It's like, how do we then instigate change even in our own lives, right? And not just wait for it to happen to us.
Right. Because you're right, Lauren does that. Like with Acorn,
Hmm
particularly in Parable of Talents with book two, how do you instigate change? And let me just, as you think about that, let me read some comments. So, Sisha, thank you for dropping all the links. Um, so, Bree says, Daughter of the Merciful Jeep was so good.
hmm
And Octavia Butler makes us stare down the ugliest parts of humanity and evaluate our moral point of view.
hmm
That one. Oh, so then back to the question, what changes are you trying to instigate in the world and how?
Ooh, I think I've trying to bring change for me down to small actions. I think for a lot of my life, I've thought change has to happen in giant things. I have to move to another state or get a new job or do something big to change. And I think I am maybe just getting older and a little bit less inclined to move my entire book collection to an entire new state. I mean, just moving across the neighborhood this last time was like, I'm never doing this again. So anyway, I think the change begins smaller and begins internally, with evaluating, like realizing the situation is, and then where is the moment for change? Because I think it's very easy to get, for me to get, to look at the big system and get disheartened and feel like there's not even an entry point. And so for me, it is finding the smallest step I can take in that move. And then I think like professionally, just doing things like this and working with Sistah Scifi and finding ways to connect, with other folks who love books. I mean, who doesn't love talking about books, and writers and writing, and bringing the writers together in new and exciting ways. And it's been so heartening. The best part about making changes like that for me is that it's so heartening to hear the ways that we influence each other, because I think it's easy to think that like, oh, nothing we do matters to anybody. We're never, we're doing our work, we go home. But when you start connecting with people and telling each other stories, you start finding out really interesting things about how they got to where they got and how little teeny things that happened to them. We've been running this flash fiction group thing all summer. We grid groups of writers together online and they trade short fiction with each other and they critique. And it's like, cool. Then they go away for the rest of the year and we hardly hear from them. But this year I got to meet two folks who met in this program, and it's all online, but they wound up meeting in person. They got together for the first time in person to connect at a conference. One of our Clarion West 6-week students participated in this flash fiction workshop group. So all the time I'm kind of banging my keyboard and going, I can't, I've got to work the software and Discord and this, that, and the other thing. And so it's a good reminder, though, to me that like it's not about Discord and the software and the keyboard. It is about the connections. And being part of connecting people has been the change for me that's been the most meaningful, both professionally and personally, I think, is because I get to now see the threads of where things we've done as an organization has touched other writers and connected writers. And so that's super exciting. I imagine you have a lot of that experience. I feel like you are such a connector. You're always introducing people to other people and, like tell us about that.
Yes. Yes, and um, I mean, now that you said it, I can't think of a single example. Like my brain just went,
Yes.
um,
Like,
because
what's your favorite book?
um, and I think it was because you were talking and I loved everything you were saying. And I was like, teeing up the next question, like, oh,
Oh,
so you're also a writer. So tell us about your two series and Deaf Dancer. So I was like ready. And then you changed it. And my
I'm
brain was
sorry.
like,
Yeah, I was a journalism major, so I'm always going to bounce a
oh,
question back at you. I can't help myself. Like,
no, no, it's good. I was just like, so that's why I was like, deer in headlights. I was like, oh, just I'm not ready. Um, so yeah, so why you tell us about your writing and connect it back to activity? Well, I will talk about experiences connecting community with Sister Sci-Fi.
sure. Sure. Sorry. Yeah, I will. I will. Okay, so I have written Clarion West taught me that I'm generally not a short fiction writer. So I went on to write novel length work, and I work in fantasy and fantasy romance right now. I have two series out. I write as Jasmine Silvera, which is family names all smushed together to honor my people and where I came from. So Jasmine Silvera has published 5 books and has book number 6 coming out later this year. My books are all very much escape and delight, fantasy romance set in Prague and an alternate magical reality, werewolves and witches and necromancers and that kind of stuff. It was funny because for a long time I thought, oh, I got to work with Octavia Butler, and she would just maybe, I don't know if would she feel let down that I was writing things that are escapist and not very, what I would describe as like incredibly, in the way that her work is so challenging and prescient to read. And then just anecdotally, I heard a story about some of she enjoyed reading works like of L.A. Banks, and so who wrote a great vampire series. And I thought, you know what? I hope I am making her proud, because I think she really gave me, when I needed a permission slip to be in the space and to tell the stories that I wanted to tell, she was there and she gave it to me very generously, in a way that I think all writers who are come a little bit farther down the path should turn around to the young writers behind them and hand them the permission slip they so desperately long for, until they're ready to, feel like they can do it themselves. So in any case, so that's how she has inspired my work. And I do, I love to deal with magic on the scale of magic being sort of forbidden, and what happens for the folks who have to practice their magic quietly, and the penalties
Mm.
that they pay for having power sometimes. And so in that way, I hope that I'm sort of honoring some of her larger conversations and her invitation to really use speculative fiction to talk about some things that we currently experience. There's just a lot more kissing and adventure and murder in my books. So
And I'm here for all the things. Um, I can't remember where I was, and somebody was like, Octavia Butler would be proud. And I was like, wow. So I offer that to you. Octavia Butler would be proud.
I accept
Um,
that with my whole heart. Thank you.
Yay. Going back to the chat. So Leslie Penelope says, I love Jasmine Silvera books. So that's
I
like
accept
you
that
too.
with my whole heart. Thank you,
Yeah.
Leslie, because I love Leslie Penelope books. Bliss Wars has been one of my favorites this year to get through, and I love all your historical fiction. So I'm really into, yeah. Thank you.
So that's a blurb. Um, so that was exciting to read. Evolving Wellness, who makes some really amazing Octavia, but I'm not at helm of the Rise of Joy, is here. So Aisha says hi. And yeah, so connecting folks. Um, yeah, I just really love having a space where readers can have authentic
Mhm.
conversations, right, about books that they absolutely love. I love having a space where like authors can connect with those readers. Um, to date, I wish I would done more like like connecting authors to each other, but I love like being able to do. Okay, so I finally have, but I was just kind of talking until like something landed. But so in April, I was able to do like a panel on like the golden age of Black horror and like women in the space across mediums. So like there was a writer, there was somebody who just published a comic book, a graphic novel, somebody who worked on the documentary Horror Noir. And it was just like a great conversation to have, like looking at like referencing a lot Robin Meads Coleman work
Mhm.
from Horror Noir, the book and the documentary, to kind of contextualize what is Black horror, and then have the conversations with people creating it now and connect them to each other and connect them to the audience. Like Tracy Baptiste was one of the authors. It was fun. So that's an example of bringing
Yeah,
books.
you did so well doing that. Like, I think, everybody's like, "Oh, yay, Jordan Peele invented Black horror," and you're so good at like recontextualizing things and like bringing people like, because we all know this stuff has been around a lot longer than the one person that brings it to pop culture level. But it's so great to like, and no shade on Jordan Peele. I
No,
have
no.
loved every single one of those movies in ways that I don't usually love horror. So, but yeah, I think the work that you're doing kind of breaks the narrative of like a single person is the representative of all the things. So that's really, really
And
cool.
I'm laughing because when you say that, like Jordan Peele invented Black horror, I was like, obviously nobody would say that. And then I'm like in my mind, I was like, somebody said
I
would
didn't
say
make it up.
that.
I don't make these things up. It's too good for me to make up. Honestly, I mean, truth is way stranger than fiction, and we all know this. So, yeah.
And it's funny because like in publishing now, like 90% of the books that's a horror by a Black author and deals with Black issues, it's like Get Out meets blah blah blah, and it's
Hmm.
like I get it. I see what you're trying to do. I ain't mad. And
Yeah.
yes. So anyway, so I hear you on that. Um. Okay. Yeah. Bravo. So for me, it was a rough ride, right? Like um the neighborhood outside of Lauren's gated community was really rough. The journey to like Northern California was really
Hmm.
rough in the book. There's some very harrowing scenes, and so the ending felt like I was like, we made it to the mountaintop. That's not giving away the ending. It's kind of brought it loose. um, how did you feel about the journey in the book?
I mean, as a writer, one of the things they say is not to be afraid to put your characters in danger. And I think that Octavia Butler is the master of throwing people we love into like fiery pits on the way to getting where they're trying to go. Um, I don't know how. It's very hard for me to do that as a writer, and I to the degree that she does, and I have so much admiration for it because it really is very visceral. It is a tough read. It is, especially I often forget that Lauren is a 16-year-old girl, and it is you just she puts everything at stake, and there's nothing safe in a way that is impressive for as a writer, and terrifying as a reader. So yeah, I see the comment about the dread that you feel for a brother. Yeah, I mean, and foreshadowing, this is going to be a thing that you're going to have to worry about for a while. I love Octavia's books, and also I have to palate cleanse after and read something fluffy, because it's a lot of there's a lot of very visceral, especially for someone with a little bit of anxiety already. It can be a little tough. Worth it, definitely worth the read, but I find it really challenging.
Agreed. So true. And I just want to notice that's going to be long. So I was going to read like a quote, but I was like, that's a really long quote. So essentially, the situation was Octavia Butler was at an event, and somebody was like, your books are really heavy. Like, how do you navigate hope? And Octavia's like, you know, me writing these books about what happens if we don't change is being hopeful, and Octavia feels her characters are hopeful.
Mhm.
Was that your experience in reading Fairwood?
I think for me that's a harder stretch to make. I appreciate what she's saying. I think it for me the books are a challenge to you, of this is how bad it can get, and potentially worse. Like, so what are you going to do before it gets there? And that's where the hope and the optimism comes in. Is like, well, I'm going to push you right into the scariest thing you can imagine, if for nothing else than to make you so uncomfortable that you try to figure out what to do to stop it before. Um, and I don't think it's interesting about optimism and what we kind of expect from writers to bring. I mean, there's this balance between what as a writer you're trying to convey and work through, and then there's a point where you hand that off, and then it's up to the reader. And I don't think the two have to agree. I think it's very much, there's no obligation to produce hope or optimism in any sort of recognizable way to every person. And I think it's a very brave choice to do it in your own way. And so if that's what
Mm,
she sees, what she saw and perceived herself as doing, then absolutely that's what she's doing, and that's her way of doing it. And I deeply respect that. Um, I think it's interesting because she's influenced so many other writers, that that's where you start to see the hope and the optimism, in the way that then other writers have taken the next stride, and taken and have read up or internalized her work and then moved it forward in their work. So it's really interesting to me to see where it goes after this, and how then do new writers who are engaging with her even now then internalize that and take it forward. So for me, that's the place for hope and optimism in related to these books. I don't honestly see it in the book. And of course now I say that, but there was a third book that was never written, published. So so I don't know. I could very well be underselling her optimism that I didn't see in the first book. Because even at the end, I felt like, man, this is yes, we're there, but also like, whew, the price that we paid to get there is so immense. Where do you go from here? And the future still feels tenuous, even at the end, I think, for me.
Yes. Agreed. So we're winding down the discussion portion. I'm going to do some, I don't know if you watched it. I'll do a couple of this or that, which is my second favorite part of the live. My first favorite part of the live is everything we've been doing this far. So if you have questions that you want to discuss as a group about Parable of Sower, now's your time to drop them in the chat. I can see the chat. I'll be highly responsive. I'm reading them. So yes. So then before we transition, as we wait for questions and we transition to this or that, as you think about people who are carrying on the legacy, authors, who is the author that you feel exemplifies that the most? If you
Oh
had
no,
to choose
it's my turn for my brain to go entirely blank. I mean, I think so. Two answers. One, I think it's happening in the obvious names, and I think N.K. Jemisin and specifically for the anthology that came out. When do we? The name is totally escaping me.
Black
Black
Future
Future,
Month.
yeah, because I think that is like both her own work and then opening up this anthology and this opportunity to tell all of these stories. Yeah, I think I have not, oh man, Evie Savoy, Andrea Hairston, I think. Nisi, obviously. I don't think you can have the conversation without Nisi. Um, I think there's some really interesting other writers coming out of diaspora that are not US based. So folks like Yvette, Lisa Ndoglu, and the Voodoo Knots. They're really producing some really interesting short fiction specifically. Drinking from Graveyard Wells just came out, and I don't want to take away from the fact that she comes from a storytelling tradition, African storytelling tradition. So it's not that she's pulling out of Octavia, but I think there is this place where this overlap where we all begin, and the Octavia's presence in the literary world then opens up for other folks as well. So I saw this question. What can you tell us? I can't tell you anything about it except for that I heard, and this is totally unverified, so I probably shouldn't even say it on Instagram. If you don't know, you don't know. I thought it was a parable of the trickster or something, and there's an article that refers to it. So
I haven't. I mean, no, you're right. So I have not done an academic paper on it. So, like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's just Instagram. But it is Parable of Trickster. There's several drafts in the archives. I think it was in most of the versions, it was set in outer space, and the main character was everything between the da da da. I think I read someplace like she was a detective, and I think it was never published because Octavia never got finished a draft that she was super excited about. But again, there are people with much better answers than what I gave you, but that's what I think I remember I heard. So yes.
That's even more information than I have. So thank you. I just knew the title. Yeah, I just knew the title. Yeah. And
No,
there was one.
We bounced off each other because I would have forgot about the third book and I don't think I remembered the title. So
right. Cool. Great.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Right
you
now
see more new authors and books than I do though, Isis. Like I am so far behind on my reading list. I am never, I mean, if you yeah, so if there who else is coming up that you would
There's so much. I mean, I think you listed several people. I was like, oh, that makes sense. I think the one person who you River
oh
Solomon, I
yeah.
think, yeah,
Yeah.
is a really good one. And it's like it's very science based. The writing is very surgical. You have very I was gonna say live characters, but characters who really like their, due to their
Mhm.
identity and intersection, identity are on the margins and like is based in that history of blackness and takes it into the future and does really
Mhm.
fascinating stuff with it. Um, who else? Um, there's the author of Womb City, who I think does like
Mhm.
animation. I want to say that every time I was like the author did an in person event, and like every time I said their name, they're like it's completely wrong, and I just feel really self conscious about saying it. Um, so I need to sit and meditate on that. Obviously, um,
It's also think it's Jelly Clark does some really interesting things with race
yeah,
and spec fic, like I think that is retelling some and just involving race and social issues around that, and although it's more fantasy, I would say, probably, than, I don't know, genres for marketing people. I mean, I
yeah.
know.
Yeah, and I do so yeah, there's so many good ones. And then like I think about like people from the continent, like I'm really there's so many. I mean, Moom City is from author from the continent. There's
Mhm.
also Lule Talabi, but I
Yeah.
think of their work is different. So yeah, we could be here all day, but yes, Charlie Clark, thank you for dropping that in the chat. Okay. I have The Deep down here with me. Oh yay! Yeah, The Deep is also by
Rivers, yeah.
Okay, so before we hop off, a couple of, and we do the this or that, we'll probably do like 2.5. If you click this little arrow here, you can follow. If you don't follow Sister Sci-Fi already, you can follow Sister Sci-Fi. If you don't follow Clarion West, follow Clarion West, especially if you are an author, because you'll come into Sister Sci-Fi's inbox like, who can read my manuscript? And I'm like, I'm so stressed with my to-be list right now. It's not me, but the folks at Clarion West
Hmm.
can connect you with somebody, or you can apply to attend the 6-week workshop and be in community with other speculative fiction writers. And there's a whole host of other resources.
Not
And
too late
all
to join the write-a-thon, so come on over and write with us this summer. We'd love to have you. We would absolutely love
yes,
you to come write with us.
yes, and you can join the write-a-thon. I was about to say maybe I'll write this year, but I was like, that's never happened. So it's probably not going to happen this year. And yes, and thank you for dropping all the links. So then this or that. Um, First one is this is a trick question. The library or the bookstore?
Ooh, library. I'm an old school library person. I used to bring home stacks, and now that Libby's in my ear, so yay libraries. Or independent bookstores, indie bookstores. Support your local indies.
I'm not. You know what? I love the library, so I'm not mad. So I love it. I love it. So Lauren or dang, who's the or? Who's the or to Lauren? Let me. I was like it's like Lauren. I was like who Lauren or Anya Wanyu is the main character in Wall Street.
Ooh,
I was like, I know I can find a good or for this. Yes.
yeah. Oh man. Okay. So I'm a Gemini, so this is that as torture. Both always. Yes. Wild Seed really was my first Octavia, so I'm gonna go on whose name I'm not even pronouncing correctly. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I,
Lauren. Love you,
yeah.
Lauren.
I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly either. Um, Pasadena or Seattle?
Oh, Seattle. And I'm a Californian, so I realize that I may not be allowed back into the state after I say that.
Um, okay. What do I have one more? Okay, last one. Parable of Sawyer, Parable of the Tower.
Oh, I'm always a first book person. No matter how good the sequel is, I'm always loyal to the first one. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yay! Well, thank you so much for joining. This was absolutely absolutely perfect. Yeah, we'll grab a cup of coffee or something when I'm in Seattle next, or I mean, you won't be in California because they've absolutely revoked your California passport. You're just denied now.
Yes, I've been stripped of my roots. Yeah, it's been really great. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for having us on to join you and to talk about Octavia's legacy and her work with Clarion West. And I love what you do. What you're doing is so great. So we love you. We love you. Love you.
Same. Okay, last this or that, because it got dropped in the chat. Also, if you're in, you can also respond in the chat. Lauren or Lilith, and Lilith, it's who Lilith is.
Yeah, I think I will go Lauren in that one. I think I will. Yeah, I do think that yeah, Lauren is amazing. And also 16. Man. Yeah.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay, so now we're closing it up. Okay, have a
Okay,
good night.
okay. Bye. Thank you. See you
Bye.
later.
Okay.